Alright, so we got the Finalmouse Starlight Pro TenZ edition or whatever it's called, and we're gonna talk about latency, build quality and all the issues that I have in my two units, as I do have the medium and the small version. And let's go ahead and start with the quality. So basically my medium version has a pretty major issue with the left click. You should be able to hear that there is some weird creaking and the click is also quite heavy. When I spam the left click it feels good, it's still heavy but there is no creaking, but when I once in a while click it, it has this weird creaking thing and it's really irritating and it ruins the click feeling completely. And not even actually just the click feeling but the functionality altogether, so this is horrible to use in game. The right click on my medium feels good but it's quite heavy, much heavier than on my previous Starlights. Otherwise no side flex on my medium. There is no creaking, no flex anywhere in the top shell, the quality is good and it feels very solid. No issues in game either, other than the left click being absolute trash. The small version that I have is then again pretty much flawless, the left click feels very good and these clicks are both lighter than on my medium. Side buttons feel good, they are somewhat mushy but still very good for general use and in game because they are quite light. There is a little bit of post travel but nothing major. No creaking, no side flex whatsoever, but there is this funny thing that when I press the shell from here I can actuate a click. Good engineering by Finalmouse, as you don't necessarily need to click the left mouse button to actuate the switch. No side flex whatsoever and no creaking, it's again very solid but there is slight rattle. And it's also there on the medium, but on the small one it's coming from the scroll wheel, but in this one it doesn't seem to come from the scroll as I'm holding the scroll wheel down and shaking it. Nothing major though, the rattle does not really bother me in real use or in game. So overall I'm super happy with the small version, but the left click just completely ruins the medium for me. Let me know if you guys have heard of a same issue with the TenZ Pro edition, and if you know if there is a fix for it. Let's move on to performance, and the Starlight 12 does perform very well, but they did market that they are the best around and they have the lowest click latency and lowest motion latency around, and they do not quite have that. Starting with the click latency that I recorded with LDAT and interfacing, I got 2.55 milliseconds for average, and the standard deviation was 0.38. So this click latency is still very good, but it does get beaten by quite a few wireless mice, for example the Razer V3 Pro at 4000 Hz, which I got 0.57 for average and standard deviation 0.08. The Viper V2 Pro has the same tech, so the numbers will be very similar, and it's safe to say that these mice are pretty fast. I also have the new firmware for the HAUS Plus 4K, so the new click latency as average is 0.83, which is also very good, and the standard deviation is 0.11. So GBulls managed to improve the mouse quite a bit from the previous firmware. Then we of course also have the G Pro X Superlight, which is about 1.7 milliseconds. I haven't tested it myself yet, but Tech Power Up has, and he's using the same exact method, so these results should be the same for me. And there is also one more mouse with better click latency, which might be a little bit surprising for you guys, and that is the Razer Orochi version 2. 2.16 milliseconds average and 0.35 for standard deviation. The bang for buck that you get for the Orochi version 2 is actually pretty insane. I will get you guys even more values in a future video, but basically for now what you need to know is that the Starlight 12 does perform very well in terms of click latency, but it's definitely not the best mouse available. The sensor performance in the TenZ edition is still very good, so it doesn't have any noticeable motion delay. The wireless implementation doesn't of course quite match up to the G Pro X Superlight, as you can see with these comparison graphs that I did record against the NP01S from backseat. And of course it gets destroyed by the 4000 Hz polling rate wireless mice, so the Latency V3 Pro and the Viper V2 Pro and the GBulls HAUS 4K. With this being said, the Starlight 12 does feel very responsive in game, and you should not notice these differences whatsoever. The mouse also has motion sync enabled, and it does not seem to add any latency, as it doesn't lose that much to the G Pro X Superlight. One thing to also notice that the battery life is extremely good on the Starlight 12, so it's on level or even above the G Pro X Superlight battery life. I've talked about the shapes of these two mice quite many times in multiple multiple videos, but I will quickly mention that in my opinion the medium Starlight 12 has so much competition that at this price, at 190 bucks, it doesn't make much sense in my opinion to buy this mouse. But on the other hand, the small one doesn't have that much competition in this size category, and I think this is much better scale for this shape. With my 19x10cm hands and my grip preferences, the Starlight 12 medium kind of feels too wide, and I for example prefer the super light, the HAUS Plus, the M42 and the X2 medium over this one. The X2 medium is also quite wide, but certain aspects of this shape like the hump make it feel better for me in hand than the Starlight 12 medium. With the Starlight 12 medium there is just a lot of palm contact pretty much all over the top of my palm, and I do not enjoy that. Overall, my thoughts about these two mice is that they will end up being too expensive for what they provide, especially if you have to pay customs fees. I paid about 215 euros per mouse and it's way too much for what it has. If you get a good unit, these are very good, but they are not the top tier options in any other category besides weight. If you want something that has top tier performance, you have to go with the Razer Death Adder V3 Pro or the Viper V2 Pro or even the G-Wolf's HAUS Plus 4K. Then again, there are plenty of mice with similar performance to the Starlight 12 that have better shapes, like in my opinion the Xtrfy M42 and the Pulsar X2s. Check out this video right here for some more thoughts about the Starlight 12 medium, and this video right here for some more thoughts about the small one.